All right, so here is the big idea for today. We are going to make these things called sign charts, like plus or minus, because the big idea is we want to know if the output of a function is positive, negative, zero, or doesn't exist. So let's kind of look ahead towards what we're going to do in the next lesson. Here's a rational function. Okay, there's information you can glean by just looking at the function in this form. You know, it's got a horizontal asymptote because the limit is 1 because this ratio is 1. You know that if you put in 0, the y-intercept is 2 over 4. But we really want to know where is the function positive or negative. So instead of adding or subtracting, it's going to be easier if we factor. Okay, so you factor the numerator. I think you get x plus 1, x plus 2. You factor the denominator. I think you get x minus 1 and x minus 4. So the candidates that we want to put on our sign chart, the numbers that are important, are the numbers that make the numerator 0 or the denominator 0. Okay, so what numbers are those? We're going to put on negative 1, negative 2, and we're going to put in 1 and 4. And the key thing is you want to make a old-fashioned number line, and you're going to organize these numbers, and all that's important is that you put them in numerical order. The spacing is not important. You have to put them in numerical order. So the smallest number is negative 2, and then the next number is negative 1, and then the next number is 1, and the next number is 4. And those 4 points divide the set of real numbers represented on the number line into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. Okay? And so let's just take a little look. The numbers in the numerator, and nothing reduces out, so there's no removable discontinuities. The numbers in the numerator literally make the special numbers we got from the numerator make the output 0. So I'm going to put like a closed circle of 0 there. So I know this output's 0, and I know this output's 0. And I know that at 1, the output doesn't exist, and at 4, the output doesn't exist. So the function's not positive or negative here because the output doesn't exist, and the function's 0 here, so it's not positive or negative, okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the region. Now, people do sign charts differently. And so one kind of common way is you can pick a number in a region. Say like you wanted to figure out, is the function positive or negative in this region over here to the left. You could pick any number that's in that region, like negative 3 or negative 4, and put it into the function and see if you get negative or positive, and that means that whole interval is. But I think it's easier to sort of organize it this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a template for the function itself, and the function has 4 factors and divisors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this little template, and that's just representing the 1, 2, 3, 4 factors. So everybody add that to your paper. And again, if you Google, people make sign charts differently. But the goal is, how do you organize your thinking to answer the essential question, like, is the output positive or negative? Okay, ready? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at each factor. So I'm going to change colors as I go. I use yellow for the first one. Okay, so if I just look at this factor, what makes that factor be 0? Well, that's when you get negative 1. So really, if I just think about that first factor, think back to 1 algebra. If you pick a number that's bigger than negative 1, like 4, 5, 7, a million, that factor will always be positive. But if you pick a factor that's less than negative 1, that factor will always be a negative number. And so I'm just going to put that sort of symbol in the little box that represents that factor. So if I pick a number bigger than negative 1, that's a plus number. If I pick something less than negative 1, that's a negative number. And I'm just going to go through and I'm going to do this for all of the different factors. And after you do this a couple of times, it really doesn't take too long. Okay, so let's see. Let's look at x plus 2. What's the number we got that we put on our number line? we got this number -2 because that made the factor 0. Pick any number that's bigger, like 7, 1,800,000. That factor would be positive. And to the left, that factor would be negative. And now we're just going to put those symbols in the box that represents that factor in each slice of the graph. Plus, 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 and then negative. Okay, let's do the next one. I'll just change colors so it's kind of easier to see. Okay, so let's look at this one. This one happened when x is 1. Okay, and so again, if we go to the right, we can pick a number that's bigger than 1. That will be a plus number. A number that's less than 1 will be negative. So that's plus, plus, plus. Oops, sorry, eraser. That's negative. Sprayed. Okay, let's grab a color for the last one. I don't know what color we used. Let's do gray. Okay, so that was for this factor. That's at 4. Again, we get bigger, we get a plus. We get smaller, we get negative. So plus, and then minus, 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 minus. Okay, so now why do you care? Because now we can look at the 4 signs and decide, is the output of the function positive or negative? In this first group, you have 4 negative numbers. So when you multiply and divide, this is a plus. I like to put a little circle there so I can see it. That's a plus. In here, you've got 3 negatives and a plus. I know this is negative. Here you've got 2 pluses and 2 negatives, so that's a plus. And in here you've got 1 negative, so that's negative. And here they're all positive. Okay, so our task was, where is H positive? So I'm just going to grab the highlighter. Okay, now it's not here because that's 0. That's everywhere here. It's everywhere between these points. And it's everywhere to the right. So on those intervals, H is positive.